Yes guys, welcome back to another video. Welcome to the George Benson football channel for Porto 0, Chelsea 2, Chelsea player ratings. I stopped doing this series for a couple of games because after the Leeds result and then obviously the West Brom result at the weekend, I figured that people don't want to hear more about a game where things haven't quite gone Chelsea's way. Unless it is like a final or a semi-final, which we're 1 foot into that now, then I think I'll probably do these player rating videos when we win so that we can enjoy the win, revel in the victory a little bit more, and break down in more detail what we can't do in 6 Things That We Learned, player by player, exactly what's going on. If you haven't seen 6 Things We Learned yet, I'll leave it as a card on the screen, and if you are not yet subscribed to this channel, make sure you do so. And I've done a video over on GBFC 2 where I talk about all 4 of the Champions League quarter-final first legs, so go and check that one out as well. But overall, we'll start off by just giving my general feeling, having listened to all of the interviews, which is what I don't get to do in 6 Things That We Learned. Watching back the extended highlights again, this was actually a Chelsea victory that on paper certainly looks the most comfortable of any side that won in the quarterfinals. It's a 2-0, 2 away goals. But the reality of it is, despite controlling the game, I feel as though we never really entered anywhere near the top level that we can, which some people are saying, we shouldn't be saying too many good things about this one because we could have done a lot better. I understand that kind of rationale, but at the same time, I would much rather revel in the victory, get excited about what it means, knowing that we can still improve and that we can still get better. And as we go through these player ratings, I'm not going to do the substitutions because I feel like with so many players having so many different minutes, it's kind of hard to work out a logical way of rating the players out of 10. As for the starting 11 ratings out of 10, it's based off of how I feel they performed or what they could have done better to get a higher score. So there wasn't like a Olivier Giroud 4 goals in Seville 10 out of 10 performance tonight, but I think all round it was very, very good across the board apart from the attackers, but we'll get into those later. We begin with Edouard Mendy, who keeps yet another Champions League clean sheet. I feel with Mendy, he's gone under the radar this season in terms of the influence and importance his performances have had on Chelsea's results and solid defensive growth as the season has progressed, minus the game against West Brom. But I thought Mendy was excellent. I've given him a 9 out of 10, and of course, a green light. He's going to start the game against Palace at the weekend. If Kepa's fighting with Rudiger on the training ground and Mendy's keeping clean sheets, it's an absolute no-brainer. I think the one thing I was worried about going into this game was having conceded 5 goals, we saw, particularly in the early stages of both games against Atletico Madrid, they were pressing very high, and when Mendy had the ball at his feet, because we know that Chelsea often at times in defensive areas play those risky little passes across the back line or back to the goalkeeper, I was worried that after that defeat to West Brom, his confidence might have been shot a little bit. It's often something that happens with goalkeepers where they overcompensate for a game where they've conceded a lot of goals by being a bit more risky and trying a bit too hard. But there was none of that from Mendy. The cat will not bloody shut up down there. I don't know if you can hear Zola. He's having an absolute whale of a time all by himself. Mendy, I thought, was excellent. He made some big saves, particularly the corner. I mentioned it in 6 Things We Learned, so I gave him a green box. The corner's going in. Absolutely no questions about that. And I mentioned it again in that video, but I said you can hear, if you had the fan noise turned down on the commentary, you could hear that even when the ball was just entering the actual 18-yard box, Mendy knew it was coming straight for him. He knew he was going to be under pressure on the line, and he committed himself to moving into the area that would give him the best option and the best chance to palm the ball away from the danger zone. It could have been one of those where if he reacted late, he could have ended up just, flapping at it a little bit and it lands to one of the strikers or defenders and a Porto player gets a tap in if a Chelsea defender doesn't react quicker. So great stuff from Mendy, big saves, and I've given him a 9 out of 10. We move into the centre-back 3, starting off with the captain, Azpilicueta. I actually feel as though it was one of those underrated Azpi performances One of those where he does everything that he needs to do right. He tries to get forward, but he's calculated. It's a word I've used a lot when analysing this Chelsea game against Porto. Across the board, Chelsea were incredibly calculated. Again, I've given Azpilicueta a 9 out of 10. I think in terms of the defensive work that he had to do, such as making tackles, making important blocks, he sent one out for a corner that was very, very important, where it looked as though the Porto player might have shot, the ball was rolling towards the bottom corner of the net, Mendy would have seen it late. Azpi gets a big touch on it, deflects it over for a corner, and I think he led the game by example at the back for Chelsea. I think it was a solid display. And we move into Andreas Christensen, who, once again, hardly put a foot wrong. He's back in the side, he keeps his place in the central position, ahead of Thiago Silva, and he won 100% of his duels. I think he misplaced 3 passes and nearly made 50 passes during the game. So that's a very high pass completion rate. And I thought Christensen was trying all the right things. A couple of the balls that he did miss were attempted long balls over the top, which the idea was very good. And Chelsea did miss a couple of those in the early stages of the game where they were trying to catch the runs of Timo Werner, but it wasn't quite linking up very well. But again, Chelsea keep another clean sheet. I don't think we can underestimate just how good our defensive displays have been in these knockout stages of the Champions League. We've not conceded a goal in 3 matches, 2 against Atletico, 1 in the away leg against Porto. It's a phenomenal stat for us. And I move into Tony Rudiger, who gets back in the side today in the left centre-back position. And a lot of people are saying now that Rudiger's actually the best centre-back at the club. I'd love to hear what you think about this. After the Thiago Silva red card, I think it would be very easy to have a little mist come over our eyes and just completely underrate how good Thiago Silva is. But I would love to know in the comments down below, who do you think is currently the best in form or the best centre-back at Chelsea Football Club? Rudiger, I think there were more things that, to my eye, stood out from both Azpi and Christensen, but it was solid again from Rudiger. He didn't really put a foot wrong. I've given him an 8 out of 10 and a green light. I think he should start the game against Crystal Palace on Sunday, or is it Saturday? I don't know. I think it's Sunday here for me, Saturday for you lot back at home. We move into a man who I thought was absolutely ginormous at the back for Chelsea, literally and figuratively when we talk about his impact on the game, Reece James. He was absolutely bullying the Porto side. They were trying to get forward. They have a lot of tricky players. And what they do very well, Porto, is the little interchanges in the final third where they're making quick passes and players are darting around the back, running around, trying to make runs to the byline to cut balls back into the big striker, Marega, who was trying to cause Chelsea some problems all evening but didn't really get a sniff. Reece James, again, I don't want to use the word calculated, but I could easily use the word calculated. Controlled, I would say, is a good way to describe how Reece James played. Going forward, he tried to get forward at every opportunity. I think the first half we saw the balance in his game, which was certainly the key thing that he struggled with last season, but he's developed massively in that area of his game this season where sometimes he'd overcommit going forward and then he'd be susceptible to racing back and being caught out of position, or if he's got to cover the centre-back, he would be in the wrong place and the opposition would go ahead and score. I think the fact that Reece James, at the age that he is, can put in a performance like that in a Champions League quarter-final and come away with a clean sheet, having had such a great impact on the team, I think it's a massive credit to his development. He had a brilliant match and I've given him a 9 out of 10, and the way that he's playing at the moment, that right wing back spot, Callum Hudson-Odoi isn't getting it back, Reece James stays in there, and then we move into the goal scorer, Benjamin bloody Chilwell. Say it every flipping time, but he was on fire last night, brilliant defensively. The way that he got forward for that goal, I say it always, I mean, we had Emerson scoring in the last round from left wing back, Chilwell doing it this time. You can see that this system, even if it isn't Chilwell's preferred position, it highly benefits the wing-backs and the full-backs by nature, Reece James, Chilwell. It highly benefits them because they do have that tendency to want to get forward, to get into attacking positions, and Chilwell took his goal incredibly well. We've all sat there and we've all seen the evident comparisons that can be made with Fernando Torres' famous goal in Barcelona in 2012, where 10-man Chelsea qualify for the final. it was incredibly similar. If we're just talking about like the nostalgic feeling of the goal for a second, there are so many different little things that line up this season with 2012 and 2021, and even the numbers are the same, they're just in a different order. Seeing Chilwell round that goalkeeper, I think it's a massively important goal. I think it is the goal that allows me to sit here and say to you with confidence that I believe we're going to the semi-finals. And I think the majority of people watching this video, if you're a Chelsea fan, I think you can agree that that Chilwell goal has given us not only the numerical breathing space, but also the confidence that we got what we deserved from this game. Chelsea could have had a couple of other goals. We really should have scored again. Havertz should have doubled the lead, but he put it wide under pressure from Pepe, which you could say is very good defending, but he also should have scored. No questions asked about it. There are other chances in the game where we should have done better and actually doubled the lead again. And as the game drew on, I feel as though Chelsea needed that second goal. Bloody sneezes. And Ben Chilwell was the man to get it. Brilliant defensive display as well. I've also given Chilwell a 9 out of 10. I think it really does give Tuchel the confidence in his ability now in that wing-back role that he can be the number one ahead of Marcus Alonso. Still do the defensive stuff well, but also become a threat going forward too. We move into the Kovacic, Jorginho partnership in the middle, starting off with Mateo Kovacic. Kovacic again, just class, you know, he's got this kind of aura about him when I see him play where I trust him. I don't think he's going to make a mistake. The only time I really doubt Mateo Kovacic is when he's going in for a 50-50, because he doesn't hold back. He's Croatian. He doesn't want to mess about. And sometimes he goes through the player as well as the ball or without the ball and he gets a booking. Other than that, whenever I see him in a tight pocket of space, we saw it at times against Porto where, particularly in the first half, they were pressing us very highly. They lost a bit of energy in the second half, but Kovacic was in tight areas. He turns, he dribbles with the ball, he passes it, he gets rid of it when he needs to, carries it when he needs to, and I thought it was another very professional, that's not a flipping word, professional display from the Croat in the middle. Giving him an 8.5 out of 10, very good from me. And Jorginho, he actually got the man of the match, which I don't know how that kind of happened. I'm not saying he had a bad game. He had a very good game compared to what we saw against West Brom at the weekend. I've also given Jorginho an 8.5, but I've given him a red light because I think Kante, if he's fit, he needs to be back in the team. And I would pick Kovacic over Jorginho alongside Kante for the game against Crystal Palace. So it's a red light for Jorginho, but focusing on what he actually did and what he did very well, tempo, controlling the tempo. When we talk about Chelsea being calculated, Jorginho is kind of the guy who is either driving the wheel of the vehicle or he's making sure that the driver's keeping to the speed limit. I thought it was very good from Jorginho tonight. I thought he made some nice passes. The pass into Mason Mount, perfectly weighted so that Mason can turn his body, adjust the shoulder, drop it, turn the defender, put it in the back of the net. Brilliant stuff from Jorginho. Gets himself an assist. Man of the match officially. I'd have personally given it to Mason Mount or maybe Edouard Mendy or Reece James, but very good from Jorginho. It's an 8.5. We move into the man that I just mentioned, Mason Mount. I literally think there are not superlatives in the dictionary created right now that we can really justify using for this guy because he's on a different level. I've been saying this since the beginning of last season. When he scored that goal against Leicester at the beginning of last season, I could sense that there was something very special about this player. And I kind of want to give Mount like a little serenade here on the channel. I'm not going to start flipping singing because you'll all flip and click off. It's not worth it for anybody. But he was fantastic. The goal, it's of the absolute highest quality. In the biggest match that he's probably played in his Chelsea career, you could argue an FA Cup final, but it's a Champions League quarter-final against the Portuguese champions, and he scores a goal like that. I mean, there's not really anything this guy can do. I don't believe there's a better player in Europe right now at turning the defender on the shoulder. I think, I said it yesterday, that Mason Mount isn't the biggest physically. He's not going to be there winning shoulder barges like Reece James will. But he doesn't need to, because the way that he adapts his whole body to turn the defender takes these defenders completely out of the game. And when you can do it to the last man, and when you turn, the ball's rolling into the box under your control, and to finish it like that, it was a very mature finish. You know, Some players in that position would have taken an extra touch and then the goalkeeper could have closed down the angle, made himself look big, and then Mason Mount could have ended up hitting it wide or hitting the keeper and the chance goes begging. He hit it early, he hit it hard enough with precision, and I think that overall, his energy, again, I always say the word energy with Mason Mount because it's obvious. You know, you see him running around, you see him chasing balls that he's got no right to win, and I thought he was brilliant. I don't think it was his best game, which again is just a credit to how good he really can be, because like I said at the beginning, I think Chelsea didn't really get above, like if we say there's 5 gears, I don't think we ever entered above 3.5, and I think that was down to some poor performances from the attackers that we'll get into in a moment. But I think Mount's influence was key. I've given him a 9, and of course, it's a green light for Mason Mount. He's got to start every game if he's fit. We move into one of our 2 Germans, Kai Havertz. I've given him a 5.5. I think if we look at the way the game was, there were opportunities for Havertz to impose himself, and he didn't do it anywhere near enough. I think on the ball, he didn't look so confident. I think when he was off the ball, he wasn't as synchronised as some of the other Chelsea players were to make the right runs, to be in the right places. And I've given Havertz a red light because for Crystal Palace, I'd like to see Ziyech come in instead because I don't think Havertz did enough. And it was a very frustrating performance to watch. Despite winning the game 2-0, I don't want this to come across as completely negative because overall, Chelsea were very good. But individual by individual, I've got to be honest and say how I feel about how these players played. And I think Havertz could have done a lot more. It's a 5.5 from me. And we move into Timo Werner, who I've defended and will continue to defend until the end of this season at least. Because I think first season in English football, he's done it before in the Champions League, but he was almost non-existent in the Chelsea play, particularly in the first half. He hardly touched the ball. I think he got 9 touches in 45 minutes, which is outrageous for a player who should be the focal point and the spearhead of Chelsea's attacking. For him not to get on the ball at all and then not really do anything productive or meaningful when he did have it is a massive disappointment. And I think Olivier Giroud, when he came on, he offered a lot more dynamism to the Chelsea attack. You saw some lovely little touches when the interchange was building up between Kovacic and Giroud for the pass into Pulisic that ricocheted off the crossbar. I can see a lot more that other strikers are offering. And then when Tammy Abraham's on the bench, I want to see Tammy start the game at the weekend against Crystal Palace. I think Timo needs to be dropped. It was another uninspiring performance from him. I've given him a red light for the game against Crystal Palace at the weekend. Not impressed whatsoever, but I don't want people to think I'm writing him off. I'm not. I just think with Tammy Abraham sat on the bench for no specific reason, Timo's got to be scoring to keep him out of the team. Olivier Giroud on the bench too. Either of those two, I think, deserve to be starting over Timo Werner right now. It wasn't good enough. As for the substitutions, I think the way that Tuchel managed the substitutions, he brought 5 players on: Pulisic, Giroud, Silva, Kante, and then Emerson for another 1-minute cameo at the end. No goal this time. Pulisic I thought was excellent. I thought it was a really, really good 25-minute cameo for Pulisic. Almost scored what would have been the goal of the night if it would have gone in. Comes off of the crossbar. That was a brilliant effort. Great Chelsea move again. Another substitution. Giroud linking up with Kovacic to play that through ball. I thought it was very, very good. I thought Giroud's impact was good. We contained the game a bit better when he came on. Kante, the Porto players, must have been looking, thinking, bloody hell. They bring in N'Golo Kante off the bench, the man with more energy than a flipping energy supplier in your house. And he had a great game as well. He took the game to Porto, put them under pressure, and I think that that was probably the best substitution Chelsea had. Pulisic and Kante. Thiago Silva did his job, not really much to talk about there. And Emerson, well, I mean, if I could talk about Emerson for his performance for any more than a minute, then I think I might as well go and get myself a degree somewhere because I'm a genius. But anyway, going to wrap this one up here. It's been a wonderful night, this one. Porto 0, Chelsea 2. This has been Player Ratings. Let me know yours in the comments below. As I said at the beginning, make sure you're subscribed and subscribe to GBFC 2. Link is down below. And we'll start talking about Crystal Palace tomorrow. Big game in the Premier League. And then in 6 days' time, we can hopefully get the job done in the second leg. Come on, you Blues.